Hello everybody. I'm Dr. S. Dhanalakshmi, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Metallurgical Engineering in Government College of Engineering, Salem. I'm going to handle a topic on mineral beneficiation. First of all, what is the need for this mineral beneficiation? It is just to mine the ores, to extract them, and in order to mine it, we have to take the raw material which is available on the Earth's crust at any place and to bring it to the required place and to change its shape or size or whatever may be the properties. So for that purpose, we need in the beneficiation of the minerals. So let us go into the topic. Comminution. So what is comminution? It is the reduction of the solid materials from one average particle size to a smaller average particle size. So just the reduction of the raw material, what we are going to take from the Earth's crust, it can be done either by crushing, grinding, and any other similar processes. So it is just the breaking or grinding up of the material to form the smaller particles. So crushing, actually it is performed in 2 or 3 stages. Actually crushing is the first stage in the process of the comminution, in which the main objective is the liberation of the valuable minerals from the gangue. So the 3 stages of the crushing can be either primary crushing, secondary crushing, and finally crushing into more fine particles. Primary crushing is done using the jaw crushers. Secondary crushing, we make use of the cone crushers, roll crushers. And final crushing into the fine particles can be done either by ball mills or tube mills. So as we know already, a crusher, it is a machine which is used to reduce the large size rocks into the smaller rocks or gravels or rock dust. Crushers are used to reduce the size of the solid mix of the raw materials, so that we finally obtain the pieces of different composition which can be differentiated. So in crushing, we actually transfer a force that is amplified by the mechanical advantage through a material which is made of the molecules that bond together more strongly and resist the deformation more than those in the material being crushed. This is nothing but we are going to transfer a mechanical force to the material which has to be crushed into the smaller particles. Crushing devices hold the material between the 2 parallel or tangent solid surfaces, and we apply the sufficient force to bring the surfaces together to generate enough energy within the material being crushed so that its molecules separate from nothing but the fracturing or change the alignment in relation to each other or deformation. So either fracturing the materials or there is going to be a change in shape of the material. This is nothing but the deformation of the material. So a crushing device, it is going to have 2 parallel or tangent solid surfaces in between which the material or the raw material is going to be forced inside, and then a force is going to be given to the 2 surfaces. This force in turn is going to act on the raw material and is going to crush the material and make it into smaller particles. So this will be more clear when you are going to look onto the diagram of the crusher. So this is the classification of the crusher. So it is classified into primary crushers and secondary crushers. Primary crushers is once again classified into jaw crushers and gyratory crushers. Jaw crusher in turn is of three types: Blake jaw crusher, Dodge jaw crusher, and universal jaw crusher. In the gyratory crusher, there is going to be a gyrating motion, so the name is called as. And under secondary crushers, we are having the cone crushers, roll crushers, and the hammer mills. Now we are going to look about each one in detail. So the first one is the jaw crusher. So in jaw crusher, a compressive force is being used for breaking the particle. So this mechanical pressure is achieved by they mean the compressive force. It is achieved by the two jaws of the crusher, in which one is fixed and the other jaw is going to move back and forth. So this crusher, which is having two vertical jaws, one is going to be kept stationary. This stationary jaw is called as the fixed jaw, and the other moving jaw, which moves back and forth, is called as the swing jaw. The volume or the cavity that is going to be between these two jaws is called as the crushing chamber. So in this crushing chamber only, we are going to put the raw materials and we are going to crush the material. The movement of the swing jaw can be quite small, since complete crushing cannot be done in a single stroke. So it is going to be like a continuous operation. It's nothing but similar to how you are going to grind the particles in an ordinary grinder. In a single motion, the entire material will not be ground. Or even in a mixer, a single stroke, the entire particles what you are putting in the mixer jar will not be mixed or being ground. The same way, in a single stroke, the entire performance will not be completed. Jaw crusher, as we've seen already, it can be classified into three. It can be either a Blake crusher, Dodge crusher, or a universal crusher. They are classified mainly on position of the pivoting point. So how in ordinary scissors, the pivoting point is in the center. So similarly here, in the Blake and the Dodge, the position will vary. For one, the pivoting point will be at the bottom, whereas for the other one, it will be at the top. So we look about each one. So this is a Blake crusher. We can see that the pivoting point is over here. Sorry, it's over here. So it's having a movable jaw, which is pivoted at the top, giving greatest movement to the smallest lumps. The throw of the pivoting point, the throw of the Blake jaw crusher is determined by the hardness of the ore as well as the size of the machine. So you are going to put your feed inside, and the flywheel is being attached to the pivoted point, and in turn, when the flywheel is going to be rotated, this jaw, the swing jaw or the movable jaw, will start moving, and as this moves to and fro or back and forth, the feed material which is in the center will be crushed. And here we can see that the material is reciprocating from the top to the bottom, and here the volume will be high, and as it goes towards the bottom, the material quantity is reduced. Nothing but in the crushing chamber, as it is moving towards the bottom part, the material quantity will reduce and move to the bottom. In the Dodge type jaw crusher, the jaws are farther apart at the top than at the bottom. Whereas we can see that here it is just the opposite of it. Whereas in here the jaws are farther apart at the top than at the bottom, and it forms a tapered tube. So the material is crushed progressively smaller and smaller as it travels downward until it is small enough to escape from the bottom opening. The jaw crusher has a variable feed area and a fixed discharge area. So variable feed area. So this area will vary for that one, and this area will be a fixed one. And this leads to the choking of the crusher. Choking means it's like a jam, because when jam means when particles get concentrated and they are not able to move further apart, that is called as a choking. And hence it is used only for lab purposes and it is not used for heavy duty operations. So this is how a crushing is being carried out. So the material is being sent from the top, and as the movable jaw is going to move, you can see that the larger particles is being crushed and sent down as smaller particles. So the difference is that in the blade crusher, the swing jaw is pivoted at the upper position. The greatest amount of motion is at the bottom. So there is less choking. Whereas in the Dodge crusher, the swinging jaw is pivoted at the bottom and it has a greater tendency to choke. So this is between the Blake and the Dodge. You can see that in the Blake the pivot is at the top and in the Dodge the pivot is at the bottom. Next, moving on to the gyratory crusher. The gyratory crusher, it is similar in the basic concept to a jaw crusher. It consists of a concave surface and it has a conical head. Both the surfaces are typically lined with the manganese steel surfaces, nothing but some hardened surfaces. The inner cone has a slight circular movement but does not rotate. The movement is going to be generated only by the eccentric arrangement. As with the jaw crusher, the material travels downwards between the two surfaces, being progressively crushed until it is small enough to fall out through the gap between the two surfaces. This will also be more clear when we look on to the diagram. So this is that conical center part, and over here this we are going to have an eccentric motion over here, and as the large particles are being sent into this top half, over this area where we are going to have an eccentric motion of this cone, as the raw materials travels over here, this path is going to give a compressive force to the material and there is going to be the crushing of the material. So as it is going to move downward and come out, our output is going to be of a small sized particles compared to our input. One more diagram showing how there is a working of the gyratory crusher. So this is going to have a eccentric motion and the feed will be poured from the top, and this is our outer shell. So as there is going to be the eccentric motion and the particles is going to be flown from the top to the bottom, there is going to be the crushing happening over there. Next is the roll crusher. So we all know about rolling. It is just we are going to reduce the thickness of it. So similarly in this roll crushing, we are going to reduce the size of the material. It's like the crunching of the material. So this is best used for crunching soft to medium material when further reductions must be made. So the primary crusher will be a jaw crusher. After that we will make use of the roll crusher for further reductions. This structure of the roll crusher consists of a cast iron frame and two steel rolls, each sitting on a horizontal shaft. Rocks are crushed finely on a V-belt sheaf. This machine is generally slow and has high maintenance requirement. So, this is how a roll crushing works. You can see that there are two rollers which is fixed or mounted on a horizontal shaft, and these rollers will rotate in the opposite direction so that the flow of the material in between the rollers will take place. And when the material is being poured in between the two rollers, the materials will get crushed and it will come out of smaller size compared to our input material. This is just a simulation, and this is how the actual roll crushing machine will be in its appearance. Next, going on with milling. So, milling is also a secondary crushing operation. Milling, there are three different types of mills: ball mill, rod mill, hammer mill. So first, looking on with the ball mill. Ball mill, it is a type of a grinder. It is a cylindrical device used in grinding the materials like ores, chemicals or any ceramic raw materials and paints. Ball mills rotate around a horizontal axis. It is partially filled with the material that is to be ground plus the grinding medium. Different materials are used as medium, including the ceramic balls or the flint pebbles and stainless steel balls. Pebbles are also similar to the balls. So, along with the material which is to be ground, we are going to include our grinding medium, which should be comparatively hardened or harder than the material to be ground. Only then the milling will be efficient. An internal cascading effect reduces the material into a fine powder. Industrial ball mills will operate continuously. It is being fed at one end and it can be discharged at the other end. Whereas the lab purpose milling, we can just make use of the smaller ball mills, in which the size reduction can be noted and the efficiency is being found. Large to medium sized ball mills are mechanically rotated on their axis, but small ones normally consist of a cylindrical capped container which sits on two drive shafts. So this is how the ball mill will work. So these are the balls, the hardened balls. It can be either the stainless steel balls or the flint pebbles or any iron balls. And this is the material that needs the milling operation to be carried out. So the raw material, we can see that as these balls come and hit our raw material, the reduction in size of the raw material takes place and it is being converted into smaller size particles. So this effect in which the outer drum is being rotating and also the balls which is being placed inside are in rotation. This effect is called as the cascading effect, and in turn the raw material is being reduced into smaller size. This is also another way of a ball mill. So we are having an outer drum and an inner drum. So, and within the inner drum we are having our balls along with which the raw material is being placed. So this is to give still more higher efficiency compared to the previous one. But the principle is same. Only the cascading motion, in turn the efficiency will be more compared to the previous one. So these are the hardened balls and This is the entire ball mill. Next, going into a rod mill. It's similar to a ball mill. The only difference is that we took the balls for the milling purpose, whereas here it is being taken as rods to carry out the milling purpose. A rotating drum causes friction and attrition between the steel rods and the ore particles. So we are having a rotating drum, and also there's going to be the steel rods and our ore particles, which needs the reduction in size. But note that the term rod mill is also used as a synonym for a slitting mill, which makes rods of iron or other metal. Rod mills are less common than the ball mills for grinding minerals. Yes, this is very true. Usually only ball mills are more operative in nature in all the lab purposes and also few industries when compared to the rod mills. The rods used in the mill, it's usually a high carbon steel. It can vary in both the length and the diameter. The rods, what we are going to take inside the rod mill, it can vary in its size depending on the mill size and our requirement. However, the smaller the rods, the larger is the total surface area and hence greater the grinding efficiency. This is nothing but whatever may be the mill, the ball mill or the rod mill, we have to take the required amount of balls or rods. If you are going to completely take either full of the balls or rods, or it can be either 75%, it will be only a lesser in the efficiency in the final output, because the area required for milling will be reduced if we take more amount of balls or rods. So we cannot put our raw material to a required level. That's what they mean. Smaller the rods and larger is the total surface area where we are going to put the raw material, then there will be greater of the grinding efficiency. So this is how a rod mill in an industrial area will be in its appearance. You can see that the rods are being placed in a horizontal way. So doesn't mean that all the rod mills will be of this huge size. It can vary even from a smaller size for lab purposes or even up to this size where even people can go inside and inspect the mill. The last mill is the hammer mill. It's similar to our ball or rod mill. The thing is that the milling is being carried out by making use of hammers over here. So the name hammer mill. A hammer mill is essentially a steel drum which contains a vertical or horizontal rotating shaft or drum on which the hammers are mounted. The hammers are free to swing on the ends of the claws or fixed to the central rotor. So the hammers can either be freely moved or it can be fixed. The rotor is spun at high speed inside the drum while the material is fed into a feed hopper. Then the material is being impacted by the hammer bars and is thereby shredded and expelled through the screens in the drum of a selected size. Hammer, as we make use of the hammer house for doing any crushing purpose. Similarly, here also the hammer is going to do the reduction in size of the material. So when you look onto the diagram, it will be more clear. So this is how a hammer mill will be in its appearance. So these are all the hammers which is being fixed onto the drum, and these can either move independently or it can be fixed over the center part. Based on the requirement, there are different types of the hammer mills. This will be more clear. So this is the actual hammer mill, how they will be using in an industry, and here this is the 2D drawing of it. So from the hopper, when the material is being put inside the hammer mill, the hammers will start to freely move and it will just go and give a compressive force to the material. In turn, crushing of the material takes place, and finally after the crushing is being carried out, crushing here it means the reduction in size, though it is milling over here. After the material is being reduced to a smaller size, the hammer mill by itself is having a screen inside it. So the material is being screened and then the output can be taken from the bottom part of it. So this part is for getting the rotation of our drum. So this is just to look on to the efficiency of the crushers and the mills that we have seen. You can see that the blade jaw crusher and for the gyratory crushers, the feed size is from 1500 to 40 mm, and the product size it can be reduced only up to 5 mm. Whereas for crushing rolls and for hammer mills, the input will be the output of the blade and the gyratory crusher. So their feed size is 50 to 5 mm and the output is even up to 0.1 mm we can get the output size. And for the ball mill, the 5 to 2 mm feed size can be reduced even up to 0.1 mm product size. The next, going on to grinding. So grinding machine everyone would have seen even on the roadsides where a grinding machine is being used to sharpen our knives. A grinding machine is often shortened to a grinder which is used for grinding. It is a type of machining which uses an abrasive wheel as the cutting tool. Each grain of abrasive on the wheel's surface will cut a small chip from the workpiece. So it is just sharpening of the material using some abrasive material. So this is a grinding wheel or a grinder. So here there is going to be the abrasive. Either a abrasive belt can be fixed over here or a abrasive cloth or abrasive belt or straight away any other abrasive stone or something like that can be made used over in this part. And when you are going to hold any material closer to it, the grinding operation can be done. So grinding can be either a open circuit grinding or a closed circuit grinding. The only difference between them is that in the open circuit grinding, the material is passed only once through the machine. So nothing but in our operation, when the feed is being sent inside any one of the machine and finally we get as a product from that machine straight away, it is called as the open circuit. So only one operation is being done. But whereas in a closed circuit, the material which is coming out from any machine is once again sent into some other machine to reduce the size of it, and it can be also passed again to some other machine or it can be recycled to the same machine. So it can be done again and again. So it means that it can be recycled for second cycle of crushing. So we can see that here when the feed is being sent into a gyratory crusher, it is being screened, and then we can see that when we are having coarse, intermediate and fine material, the coarse material is once again sent back to the same gyratory crusher, intermediate is being sent to the rod mill, and the fine materials is being sent to the ball mill. And after the operation from the rod mill, it is being passed on to the ball mill, the fine materials. And once again, if there is going to be any necessity for recycling, then it can once again be sent back to the same operation again and again. So this is with the closed circuit. So with this, I complete my lecture on mineral beneficiation. So we have seen on what is comminution, and we have seen about the crushers, milling, and finally the grinding operation. Thank you.